So, there's been some drama brewing amongst Goosebumps fans. A video popped up on my feed from the YouTube channel The Horrorlander called Goosebumps Fans Are Spoiled and Need Self-Reflection. I have not seen this, so we're gonna watch it together and I'm gonna be sharing my thoughts.
Goosebumps fans are spoiled rotten in terms of content and need some self-reflection. There are hundreds of easy-to-read books out there, not to mention new books dropping every single year, even in the modern age.
So Horrorlander, first thing he's talking about is fans complaining that there's not enough Goosebumps content when there's been hundreds of books, there's technically 2 TV shows, 2 theatrical movies, video games, and whatnot. And I see what he means. There is a lot of Goosebumps content. Like, I haven't even read every single Goosebumps book myself, so I do disagree with him a little bit because I do want more Goosebumps content, but that's just me being a Goosebumps fan. Like, I would love, a new TV show to be in the works already. I love a new movie to be in the works already. I know that's unrealistic just because Goosebumps does have a fan base, but it's obviously not as big as something like, Star Wars, for instance. I do agree that we have a lot, and honestly, I do feel like we're getting more Goosebumps content now than we have in a long while, so I'm definitely happy about that, but the fan of me just always wants more, but yeah.
People are begging for that Disney Plus show, which felt absolutely nothing, and I mean absolutely nothing like Goosebumps. It was just a fraud.
I also do agree with him on the Goosebumps TV show. I'm waiting to do a whole video discussing it, the 2023 show, and then also The Vanish that came out actually earlier this year. I do agree with him a bit in the sense it didn't necessarily feel the most Goosebumps-y to me, but I'll leave it at that.
There are more arguments breaking out all across Reddit and platforms about the whole Robert Ball AI thing.
I don't know anything about this Goosebumps AI accusation, so I'm curious to hear what he has to say.
And I'm getting so sick of it to this point because these motherfuckers care way more about the book covers and the artwork than they do the actual stories.
I have been checking out the Goosebumps subreddit, and I've only engaged with it just a little bit, just go scrolling through and stuff. So far, I had no issues. I actually enjoyed it, just being able to share Goosebumps stuff, people sharing like the books that they found, and just different observations about the series. So, but again, my experience has been pretty limited, and I do know that Reddit in particular can be kind of a cesspool. So all I can say is my experience, has been positive. But again, my experience has been limited.
House of Shivers is not AI. And why do people care that much? Because this is a series that had 4 professional, iconic artists. Tim Jacobus, Mark Nagata, Craig White, Brandon Dorman. And now they're going to an AI artist? Really? The company worth $600 million and this reputation is that desperate? And people want to become Stein's lawyers all of a sudden?
I would be a bit surprised that Scholastic, like Horrorlander said, that they are this massive company making hundreds of millions of dollars a year, that they would go to AI book covers, especially at this point, just with how taboo, as we're hearing from Horrorlander, how taboo AI-generated artwork is. So I would be surprised about that, but if there's evidence out there, I'd welcome, if you have it posted in the comments, I'd love to hear about it.
All you know how to do is talk about the covers every single week as if that is the foundation of Goosebumps.
That is one thing, and not specifically with Reddit, but just general discussion I've seen amongst Goosebumps fans and just folks online, and particularly with Goosebumps, about the book covers almost get more discussion than the actual stories. I have seen that. I know what he's referring to. Again, not specific to the subreddit but just in general. And I understand where the covers, they're easier to discuss. You can just look up the image and instantly form an opinion, study it. Books, Goosebumps books aren't long, but they take at least an hour, maybe a little bit longer to read through a Goosebumps book. So I get where it's just easier sometimes to discuss the cover art than the actual stories. And I think that's absolutely fine. But I do get that frustration where it can sometimes be like that's all people know about Goosebumps is the cover art, but there's the stories, there's the characters, there's the creatures, there's the locations, there's the twists, there's so much more beyond just the book covers. But so I do understand Horrorlander's frustration here.
So the situation on Reddit was that the YouTuber Goosebumps for Dummies had gone on there and made a post about the artwork not being AI for said and said reason. And the comments that you got were ridiculous by people. First of all, they downvoted, bombed him to get his post off their Reddit because they can't tolerate opposing opinions. You know why? Because they got the brain capacity of a blobfish.
I wasn't able to find Goosebumps for Dummies Reddit post, the one that I think prompted Horrorlander to make this video. Yeah, I just don't know what the situation exactly is with the AI-generated art. Beyond just there's been accusations. Again, I don't know if there's been evidence that's been supported to make those claims, or if it's just people feel like they're AI generated, or even if it's not necessarily people debating whether the new Goosebumps book covers are AI generated or not, or if it might just be more they look AI generated. One of the newest Goosebumps books, One Night at Camp Bigfoot, I see where people would say, man, this looks kind of AI generated. Like the picture of Bigfoot in the cover, yeah, it does look a little bit AI generated. I'll give it that. So that's probably what people are maybe thinking. The current Goosebumps books, Goosebumps House of Shivers, those book covers are being designed by Robert Ball and Maeve Norton. Again, it doesn't lead me to believe that Scholastic would use them sometimes for book covers and maybe other times they wouldn't. But it sounds like the discussion is both, are the books being AI generated, as well as, even if they're not being AI generated, they look like they're AI generated, and I don't like them for that reason, which is totally valid. That's totally fine.
They don't speak without thinking. They don't take a moment to self-reflect nowadays in the modern age. They're just like, oh, this is how I feel. Oh, this is how I feel. This is my gut reaction, so it's fact. No, you gotta sit there and think for a second.
I do get what he says about gut reaction, because I've done that too a little bit. For instance, I did a review on Goosebumps, Terror in Little Creek, the new video game that came out. I wouldn't say that my opinion of it has totally changed, but I played it a little bit more and actually did a second video sharing all the secrets and Easter eggs in the game. And I think I enjoyed it a little bit more once I got to play it a little bit more and got a little more used to how combat works and everything. So it didn't totally change my opinion. I'd still stand by my original video for the most part, but usually those gut reactions, at least for me, aren't always how I totally feel. I need more time to kind of digest and study something, get to know it a little bit before I could really form an opinion. And I assume I'm not the only one in that.
When Dummies was in the comments, replying to people respectfully, you got is like this dude. Whatever his name is, low man, whatever. I remember that dude barely name. And he's on that bully gaslighting.
Goosebumps for Dummies I'm seeing here, sorry if I came off rude. And so did acknowledge, hey, maybe I didn't say that quite right. And then obviously, little man, the only buffoon here is you grow up. That's childish. That's not cool. Don't do that. I think it might be in some ways people want to be AI generated, even if they don't. I think there's just more of this hyper vigilant, being on the prowl. Is that AI generated? Is it not? And especially if you don't like something in particular, it's sometimes easier just to take it down as, oh, it's AI generated. But I think Goosebumps for Dummies, it sounds like his original post was just saying, hey, here's why I don't think they're AI generated. And so, which I think it's totally fine and something good to discuss as well. And so it's, unfortunate kind of spilled out into just, more of a name calling match is what it looks like, And
that's a lot of Redditors, bro. Reddit is a cesspool because it's everybody behind anonymous profile pictures.
I do agree with them. There's a lot of good stuff on Reddit and a lot of good discussions, and I do like going on Reddit, but there is that whole cesspool side, and that's with every social media platform, almost just every aspect of human life, not to get too deep, but just humans in general. We're all flawed, we're all sinful, and so, but I do think it festers a little bit more on Reddit just because of the anonymous nature of the site.
But it's idiots like on the Goosebumps subreddit that can't take a moment to realize that the artwork is just visually appealing. It doesn't affect any of Goosebumps' legacy, bro. The stories is what gets adaptation. They don't look at the cover and go,
this is one thing I do disagree with the Horrorlander on when it comes to the book covers. The cover art should not dictate your opinion of the story. But with that said, I do think, especially with Goosebumps, the book covers really do matter. Just because, for myself, when I was a kid, seeing the book covers, that's what made me want to read the books. And I think that's the case with a lot of people, was the book covers are what got them to read the books. Without those fantastic book covers done by Tim Jacobus, it probably wouldn't be as big of a series as it was. Not that the stories were bad, but again, you've got to have that hook. It shouldn't be, the story's terrible, but the cover art is good, therefore it's a good book, or the cover art wasn't that good. The story was great, but the cover art wasn't good, so therefore it's a bad book,
If you identify as a Goosebumps fan and you're loud and proud, and you're not reading any of the moderns, you're not reading any of the books, you're not consuming the content, but all you care about is when a video game drops, some artwork drops, or when the new show that's nothing like the Goosebumps IP makes a attempt at it, if that's what gets you alive and kicking, you're a fraud.
Here's probably the biggest disagreement I have with the Horrorlander. I think it's fine, if you maybe just like the Goosebumps movie, but you don't like the books or the TV show or video games or just anything, any of the other Goosebumps stuff you just never engage with. I think that's absolutely fine. I'm glad that there's mediums that are able to engage with all sorts of different people, who have different tastes and different preferences, or maybe it was just a case, the books didn't really click for me, but the TV show did. The TV show didn't really click for me, but the movie really did. I will say you're probably a more well-rounded and knowledgeable fan about the franchise if you do engage with the books and the TV shows and the movies. You're just going to know more about it. If you only ever watch the movies, you're not going to know as much about Goosebumps, just obviously. There's stuff that I like and that are multimedia franchises like Goosebumps, where I've only ever watched the movies from this, or I've only ever played the video game or read the book, and I can see where for those fans, that they'd be like, well, you're not a true fan because you didn't read that. And so basically what I'm saying is I don't think you have to engage with all of the media in order to be like a true Goosebumps fan.
And it's always the people who have no credibility that gather together and start barking the most.
If you've never read the book, but you're critiquing the book and everything, it's okay, well, you never read it. How can you critique something you've never read? Or talk about the Goosebumps movie. I thought it was trash. Did you watch it? Well, no, I saw a clip and I didn't like it. Well, it's like, well, how can you really say that you didn't like it, if you only ever watched a 5-second clip,
And you think that when somebody is respectfully talking about a topic that you don't agree with, that makes them a hater and all these things.
Here's where I think we absolutely do see eye to eye, Horlander and I, is, being rude online and calling people names and being a bully. Like, that's something, don't do that. That's mean, that's hurtful. We can disagree in an agreeable way.
Enjoy the content. Be an actual fan for once in your life, or go find a different hobby where you actually care about the content.
As the Horlander said there is a lot of Goosebumps content. So much, in fact, that in the new Goosebumps video game, there were tons of secrets and references to the Goosebumps lore. I went through the game and found every single one of them, so if you want to check it out for yourself, watch the video on screen.